Well, hello there, beautiful soul, and welcome back to Chat and Channel Session. In today's session, as you can see, we're going to be discussing psychic attack and whether or not you, or parts of you at least, are attracting, allowing, or perpetuating it in some way. This information will also go towards whether you are attracting, allowing, or perpetuating cycles of unwanted circumstances or unwanted manifestations in your life. And I'm really excited to dive in and give you this alternative perspective today, which will also lead to an alternative technique for shielding from or clearing from these attacks or circumstances, which can become all too common in empaths and energy sensitives alike. You may also find last week's session interesting as we dove into some of these themes. Last week's session was entitled on my YouTube channel, Understanding Consent and Your Responsibilities in Life and Manifestation, and on all other streaming platforms you will find it as its longer title of What Happens to You in Life is Not Your Fault, but It Is Your Responsibility, Understanding Unconscious and Quantum Consent in Life and Manifestation. Now, these themes of unconscious and quantum consent, obviously we dive deeper into that in the previous Chat and Channel session, but they are going to be at play in today's session as well. So after you get through with today's session, be sure to go back and listen to the previous one or bookmark it and come back to these anytime that you need a refresher in this material, especially because I know psychic attacks are quite intense and this is a fresh take and unique perspective on such events which have been so ingrained into the fear-mongering culture of spirituality and life. So I'm excited to dive in today and give you an empowering perspective rather than a fear-based one. But before we jump in, let me say hello and welcome you back if you are a returning listener or subscriber. I really appreciate you. To those of you who are new, welcome. My name is Danielle, hashtag damsel at D's Enlightened Edits of damseldesigns.com. I am a spiritual advisor, psychic medium, quantum Sikhem and shamanic energy healer, as well as life and consciousness coach, energy artist, metaphysical teacher, and so much more. And this is Chat and Channel Session, where my guides, or in some cases, some of you, present me with a topic and we do a stream of consciousness channeling on it. I encourage you to participate, provided that you are not driving or operating heavy machinery, of course, in the chat portion of Chat and Channel. You can do that one of several ways. You can leave a comment, question, or review, or you can also participate my favorite way, which is by getting out the journal or notes app on your phone or favorite device, or the good old-fashioned paperback journal, and doing some stream of consciousness writing along with me as I channel. For those of you who do this, you often find that you are hit with the sparks of intuition and inspiration to be able to pick up on your own unique insights specific to the topic that we are channeling and how this topic fits for you in your unique life circumstance. If you need help unpacking it more or would like to dive in with spiritual support, be sure to check out my website, Damsel Designs, that's DAMCL Designs.com, for quantum and Akashic Records reading sessions, energy healing and coaching applications, and so much more. Now, with all that being said, let's dive back into today's topic. So if you are psychically inclined, a believer in energy or karma or energetic cords, any of these things in any field of spirituality, you may have heard of psychic attack. Or you may also be an empath who resonates with being drained energetically or attacked or globbed onto energetically by those around you, particularly toxic people. So first, let's give a brief overview of what psychic attack is. In case you don't know, psychic attack means that someone or something focuses intense and probably negative, toxic, or draining energy your way, and it goes into your energy field and either takes or removes energy from you, or sort of implants negative energy into your field, into your consciousness, into your life by making thinking bad luck or things go wrong, whatever you resonate with. This can also manifest in terms of things breaking in your body, in your soul, in your environment or your home, or it can manifest as sickness, energy drain, as we said, headaches, bad thoughts, negative thoughts, moods that aren't quite yours, or bad dreams, etc. It can, in extreme circumstances, result in something called soul theft or soul loss, which is something that I work with my clients in energy healing and coaching packages to heal. However, that is exceedingly rare. It has to be very targeted and in most cases very abusive in order to result in that. So no need to fear it, but I do want to put that in and let you know that the techniques we'll be discussing will also hold footing and roots to help those of you who have experienced that see it in a different way to combat it and or heal. And as always, if you need or are called to help and spiritual support in those areas, soul retrieval energy healing is something that I do shamanically with my clients, and you will find the application for that to contact me on my website or linked in the bio or description. Now, it is worth noting that most people do not soul thieve or psychic attack intentionally. This is something that becomes increasingly hard to remember when you are experiencing it, but as someone who has experienced it quite a lot in life and has worked to help many other people through it, I can assure you that in most circumstances, people are not intentionally trying to harm you or psychic attack. That is something really valuable to remind yourself when you are overwhelmed with the fear, sadness, or anger emotions. In most cases, people are unconsciously psychically attacking others by not being responsible or in tune with their own emotions or energies. Thus, they are victim-based or fear-based, projecting them upon others with their focus. And this is just by doing things that are relatively simple, by thinking about the person, perhaps focusing on their pictures, social media, text messages, writings, etc. And by placing that laser focus along with the irresponsibility for their own energy or emotions, they are unconsciously intending and allowing psychic attack to project from themselves to the area or point of their focus, which, if you're here, has probably been you at some point. In the rare circumstances that people are doing this intentionally, do have the malintent, are purposefully using their energy to laser focus on you, know that they're thinking or saying bad things about you continuously, and are not doing anything to transmute that energy, but are instead kind of purposefully sending it or wishing it your way in terms of wishing harm, etc., whether they believe in spirituality or not. I hope and pray that you will be alerted of these circumstances, be able to tell the difference between the intentional and unintentional psychic attacker. And in terms of those intentional ones, I hope that you will work to set boundaries against them in the physical as well, because although we'll primarily be discussing the psychic shield and psychic clearing methods for boundaries, etc. today, I want you to know that you are worthy to set those physical boundaries, which can become really, really important when you identify an intentional psychic attacker, because if they are an intentional psychic attacker, they are probably only one step away from also being a physical attacker in some capacity as well, or in many circumstances that is intertwined, and they may already be doing things that are intentional, either verbal, emotional, or physical attacks. So please, please always stand in your self-worth, get support, get help, get physical protection as well, where and when you need it. Set those boundaries and keep yourself safe physically as well as spiritually. But as I said, for today, we're primarily going to be focusing on the spiritual points of view and the spiritual protections, which can be quite important as well. As we've discussed, that laser consciousness focus, whether intentional or not, can wreak havoc in some people's lives. Now, I also want to note that from the highest levels of consciousness and spiritual perspective, you are part of everything and everything is part of you. So you don't technically need to go above and beyond in terms of physical cleansing or even spiritual cleansing and protection. However, while we are on these earth-based levels in this earth density, and while we have the belief and allowance of things attacking us physically or spiritually, it is important to dive into these things and explore practices that you can do that will help to protect you and clear you and make you more of a barrier, a natural barrier, so that you experience the good energies that people wish to share and not so much of the negative ones, and don't have so much of your life in the mercy or at the mercy of others who may or may not intend you harm or jealousy or bad wishes, etc. I really wanted to put that disclaimer because when you get to the points of view that we are one and all is a part of everything, that does become more part of your perspective, and hopefully you will also be at the point where you don't constantly feel the need to do things like cleansing or protection, because what were we just talking about? People's focus and their focus alone can send you or your life this negative energy if you are open to it. And we are going to be speaking about the ways that you may be open to it in just a moment. But if their focus alone can do that, then what about your focus? If you are so continually focused on the mistrust of the energies and of the universe that you always need to remind yourself or feel incomplete if you don't cleanse or protect, in my experience and in my personal experience, that is something to examine as well. Because if so much of your focus is going there and reminding yourself and reminding the universe that you have to and want to constantly protect, the universe is going to reward that focus in kind and constantly throw things your way for you to protect yourself from. So in my experience, it is all about finding that balance between moving through life with a more trusting and healed energy and also cleansing and protection when you feel that it is relevant. And again, I am going to give another shout out to my beautiful friend and fellow healer, Marcus at Starseed LightCodes, who you may have heard me mention before, because in my darker moments and in my moments which were filled with a lot of psychic attack, he has been an excellent star brother, healer, and friend who has reminded me of that and reminded me of my power. So I'm really grateful to mention him today, along with the perspective that I've taken from those experiences to pass the love and good feelings and good intentions along and help aid you in your perspective in coming to more balance with your cleansing, protection, and positive experience in this world. I'm also reminded of some of the work of someone that I've studied quite a lot, Neville Goddard, who is the father, if you will, of law of assumption manifesting. And he often says that everyone and everything is you pushed out, meaning that the reality you experience is a mirror of you, and you do have influence over who and what and how you are experiencing in the world. And to a degree, I really believe and have seen that to be true, although I do believe he left some things out in that explanation, such as free will and how we kind of cohabitate each other's co-creations of reality. But with all that being said, let's get back to how you may be contributing to allowing, attracting, or perpetuating psychic attack or these negative or unwanted circumstances in your life. So bearing in mind that we are all a part of everything, It stands to reason that if we are experiencing something from someone else and projecting that into our reality, if you dive into the quantum and unconscious consent session that we had last week, you will realize that on some level you are consenting to that experience. Otherwise, you would not be having it. Now, that's a really energy intense topic. I encourage you to dive deep in that full session to understand it more. But in the most basic of terms, the way that we are either consenting to, attracting, or allowing those experiences of attack or of negative peoples or circumstances in our life is because some part of us that is a part of the all frequency matches or energetically matches to that experience of attack or to that person or energy being that is attacking us. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in our same frame of resonance. So the way that my guides have shown this to me is if we don't have at least one puzzle piece of the experience that someone is trying to project onto us, then their negative intentions will not really be able to reach us or have the ability to become so physically manifested in our lives or in our energy fields. They may ping off a little bit, but if we're not a frequency match to them, either we will not experience it altogether or it will be very, very slight, sort of like a bug flying on a windshield and getting smashed automatically. So another way to see this, and that my guides have shown me because I love the analogies and the examples that you can visualize, is that if someone means you harm, either intentionally or unintentionally, and this could be a physical being such as a person, this could be a group or a system such as a group of friends, an organization, a government, etc., or it could be a disembodied or non-bodied energy or entity, and if they mean you harm or they are trying to energy drain from you or attack you in some way, they will be able to do that because of the magnetization or the attraction point within you that matches with them. So this could be something like an unrecognized or an unhealed wound or belief system from childhood, from a trauma, or from a past life, if you resonate with that. It could be from some old form of consent based off of how you've allowed other people to treat you before, or other systems or beings to treat you before, and you never changed that consent. Or it could be in response sometimes to how you are crying out in pain, and other people or energy beings will hear that cry that you may be crying out in anger, sadness, fear, victimhood, weakness, or dulling your pain with substances, etc., which also brings down your auric shield, so please be careful about that. And other beings can hear that cry or see that weakness and respond and attract to it and sort of answer the call. So this is how I see a lot of people, including myself at some points in my past, get attached to negative energies and entities and draining beings, because sometimes when we're in our fear, when we're in our hurt or frustration, we cry out and we say things like, we just want it all to be over, we hate everybody and everything, why do bad things always happen to us, etc. And it's almost like we send a beacon of light, but it's not so much light, it's more darkness out, and someone sees that and answers the call. And that could again be a physical person or an energy or entity or a ghost, etc., in my experience. And if you look at it this way, it's easier to have compassion for the energies and entities that may be globbed onto you, because in essence, you did invite them. You didn't intentionally invite them, but on some level, you did call and invite them, even though, of course, that's not what you consciously were intending at the time. So in these circumstances, what I recommend that my clients do is, if you have those human moments, please don't be too hard on yourself. And of course, if you are in really dark mental health moments, get yourself help as well. Spiritual support can help in these matters, but I also always advise therapeutic mental health or medical help when needed as well. And on top of that, once you're putting those systems in place, also cancel out any calls or cries that you may have put out there in agony, hurt, fear, frustration for negative things to be allowed to come your way. Cancel those out, and if you feel something, or even if you don't, say thank you but no thank you. I did not mean that call that I put out there in the world. I do not need help with this, because some of those beings, believe it or not, will see it as though they are helping you because they are answering your call or your cry. So even though they are lower dimensional and lower frequency beings that also ultimately drain you or hurt your energy in some way, they were on some level invited, and thus they can see it as though they are helping you, even though now you know that they are not. So that's something you can do for the more disembodied and non-bodied forms of psychic attack, is take responsibility for how and when you may have called these things before. And this may have been years ago. So if this is not something that you recently did, or even if it is, I also encourage you to carefully, and please with support if you can, think back to times in your past where you may have called these things to you by being in dark depressive modes, or really, really high intense anger modes where you may have called them, because sometimes these beings are lying dormant or slowly draining you in the background, in my experience, from calls that you may have made previously. So that is why with my energy healing and coaching clients, I really like to extensively dive into the field and find the roots of these calls and these attachments and these patterns, so that we can get it from the root and heal you across all levels and timelines. Now, let us also go back, because that is going to be only for a select few of you who experience disembodied or non-embodied psychic attacks. But for the rest of you that may be experiencing this through people based on energetic cords, etc., I wanted to let you know as well that sometimes the people may not always be toxic, but the cord, the energy cord between you that is facilitating the psychic attack could be toxic, meaning that person may not be toxic to anybody else in their life, but something about you and the two of you together and your karma and how you may, even beneath the surface, rub each other the wrong way, that cord of connection or relationship may be toxic and sending psychic attack or drain energy. So that's also something important to remember, because you don't have to so harshly judge and focus on the other person, in which case sometimes you may be sending psychic attack their way, and you can continually refocus on the energy and yourself instead, in order to help shield and remove and clear from that experience. Now, another analogy that my guides gave me in terms of how you can know that things can only get to you if you are a match for them is they showed me a USB file drive stick. I know that's getting a little outdated at the point of this recording, but hopefully you still know what that is. And it's almost as if these people with the intentional or unintentional thoughts or feelings towards you and the psychic attack are carrying around this thumb drive or this USB file drive, right? And it has malware on it. But if you are not a device which has an input for that drive, then the malware can't get to you, right? And it can't get to you in that way unless, of course, they employ a different technique, which you would have to allow as well, right? There would have to be some form as input. And while that can get really confusing, that's how my guides show it to me, right? Sometimes they can't become quite an energetic match, but they try to find another way. Ultimately, though, we're the ones that have control over our own inputs. And if we continually focus on that and refocus on that and controlling access to our inputs, even in changing what inputs we may have, inputs which could also be things like triggers, auric tears, openings, old woundings that are unnoticed, etc., then we're really in control of whether or not we receive that malware or that negative energy or intention or not. Now, we do this through things like forming physical and verbal boundaries when necessary, and we also do this by taking ownership or responsibility, like we were discussing in last week's session, for ourselves. Because I know when we are being psychically attacked, the first thing that our brain and body and ego and wounding wants to do is focus outward on where that attack is or may be coming from. And ultimately, that's what the attacker, conscious or unconscious, wants you to do, because that means you're focusing on them, you're feeding them more energy, you're empowering them rather than empowering yourself. And so it is counterintuitive, because you are continuing to perpetuate or allow the attack by trying to focus so much outward. So with my clients and my healing clients and myself, what I like to do is find the balance between the two of those. First, always call that energy back. Disempower them by removing your focus as soon as and as much as possible. Even if this person or this energy or entity is in your face, switch your mindset up. Even if you have to put on something streaming, put on some music, dance, do some mantras, watch a funny movie, laugh, do something to switch up your energy. If they are physically in your space, announce that you need to take some time and space for yourself. If they are blowing up your phone or your computer, etc., either ignore it or positively communicate that you can no longer answer at this time and you'll get back to them. If they are an entity that's hanging around your environment, it could be a little bit more difficult, but remember, you can still always shift your focus. Watch something, do something that's going to take all of your energy and attention away from them and onto something else, mostly completely unrelated for a little bit, right? Just to disempower that energy from continuing to go towards your attacker or drain you and continue to go to them. So I know this can be difficult, especially when we're feeling scared or frustrated or angry, and our ego's first response usually is, how can I attack them too? Or how can I shield myself and stop them? But it is ultimately much more difficult to stop or control someone else, whether they are embodied or not, than it is to control ourselves. Even though we often tell ourselves it's harder to control our own energy or mind, that is the thing that we have the most control over once we put our focus there, and once we also see it as a practice, because it's never going to be perfect while we are in a physical embodied human experience. So please be gentle with yourself as well. If something is really energy intense for you and you don't get it perfect every time, it is not about being perfect. It is about practicing this and being empowered. So do that. Shift your focus back to something else, back to you. And once you break up the tension a little bit by doing something that makes you laugh or gets your anger out, some people like to exercise or take a walk, doing something that removes so much of your intention and attention from continuously spiraling its focus on the attack that either happened or is happening, then you are pulling your power back to you. You are grounding it more. And once you have a more grounded standpoint, you can then take control and responsibility of yourself to check your inputs. Now, we were just discussing inputs, remember? And we were using our techie analogy of whether you have a USB plug, because if you don't, then they can't get to you and upload to you. But inputs, again, are your triggers. What are your triggers and why are they there? What are your wounds and why are they there? What are your buttons? What are your traumas? What are your consents, conscious or unconscious to you? Why is this allowed? Why do you believe that it's allowed? And why do you believe in the power and the rights of your attackers more than you believe in the power of you and your higher power and your spirit team of protection? Those are important questions to ask yourself. You may want to do some stream of consciousness writing on those questions and bookmark and come back to them and ask yourself again in each new circumstance so that you can get your answers fully. Working on you and those answers is going to limit those inputs. And if you do have an input there, if there's an energy cord that's attached to you from these beings, working on those inputs starts to make that cord thinner and thinner and thinner. And thinner cords means that there is less opportunity to send energy to you or take energy away from you. So this is a natural way that you can slowly over time work on your inputs and cords to disengage and remove them. Now, I do recommend when possible to work these slower ways of cord removal if you believe in that, rather than something like a speedy cutting. Although cutting cords is sometimes necessary, I like full removal of cords because cutting still leaves you with a piece of that cord within your energy center somewhere. And that could mean it could potentially regrow or attract something else in its place. A lot of people jump to cutting rituals or cord cutting rituals and don't realize that that means if they haven't worked on that root or that stump of that cord, if it were, yes, it might successfully work to remove that particular person or circumstance or attack from your life, but ultimately that beacon or that magnet or that input is still there for something else once triggered to reach out for it. And so that I like to clear from the root so that we don't have to continually attract such similar persons or patterns or attacks into our lives. And if you are on the spiritual journey, I am sure that you've probably experienced the same type of person, attack, or relationship before in another form, on another level, or to a different degree. This is why we have relationships that mirror each other so much, right? We seem to mirror or finally rid ourselves of one toxic person, and then after a little bit, the next person seems to come in doing a very similar behavior. Now, this is not a punishment. It is not a negative reflection of your growth. You absolutely will have the power to deal with these things from a higher perspective each time, but ultimately, when you get to a certain level and have dealt with it enough, you will have the power and perspective to clear it from the root and no longer need to tolerate, attract, or allow such similar behaviors in your life. This is obviously a process and it is a practice, and in my experience, it's something that is intensely or can be intensely difficult to do on your own. So please do not be ashamed to reach out for help from myself and or for your licensed medical professionals if and as and when needed, and be gentle with yourself when you're going through these circumstances. Remember that your belief is everything. The more belief and attention and focus you put on these things, the more that you are giving consent to continue to allow them in your life, and the more that you are empowering your attackers rather than empowering the stopping of the attack. So this is where our brain and our ego and our belief systems trick us to think that if we continually focus on the attack or on the attackers, we will figure out how to stop them, right? Or if we put all the firepower and energy that we can muster into stopping them, into yelling at them, into feeling resentful of them, or into retribution of some kind, then the attack should stop. In my experience, that will stop it sometimes for a small period of time, and they will come back in fuller force. So it is always much better, in my opinion, to work on yourself first. Also, take the physical boundaries like we were discussing that you need to take, and of course stand up for yourself, but find the balance between where you are responsible for allowing these inputs in, because that you have full control over. Again, you never will have full control over another person. Even if you believe in law of assumption and attracting a better version of them, you will never have full control over another person, but you do have the right to have full control control over yourself and into what you consent into your experience. So this is why you work on those inputs, work on yourself. If the techie example of the input and the USB, if you can't quite picture that, if you're not a techie person, another visual that my guides have given me is Velcro, right? Or those snap buttons. So it's almost as if one end of the Velcro, it won't stick to just anything, right? You have to have the other side of Velcro in order for it to stick. So even if someone is intensely focusing on you, it's never going to be able to fully stick to or attach to you or implement itself on your experience if you are not still holding up or allowing that other end of the Velcro somewhere in your field. So this is why you look for that. Or like for a snap button, it's never going to be able to just stick on to something if you don't have that other input. So this is why we work on our inputs to fully disengage, disallow, and stop attracting or allowing these things altogether. This will also be helpful when we can find the lesson or the karma in whatever we are experiencing, dive to the root of that so that it no longer has to come to us through our external reality. And the lessons are often tied up with our belief systems as well, right? We may believe that people will always treat us this way. They will never listen to us. They will never stop, etc. So we work on those belief systems. These are all things that you can work on within yourself and with the support of someone like myself, if and when necessary, so that you can become more impenetrable to these type of attacks and they won't be big, huge disruptors in your life as much anymore, and you will bounce back from them much more quickly and in a much more empowered way if and when these things do occur. I would also like to put a message in here for anyone who needs it today, that if someone has shown you over and over again who they are, if you have tried to work on the relationship or tell them how you feel, if you've tried the energy protection techniques and they still are continuously coming at you with negative energy, whether they know it and consent to it consciously or not, you absolutely have the right to set boundaries that fully disengage you and or remove anyone from your life which you want or need to. Please protect yourself physically and energetically by means of also recognizing when some relationships have drawn to their natural conclusion and may be over or no longer healthy for you. Obviously, we care about the other person, and I encourage you, if you feel called, to try other ways to try to communicate with them. I don't particularly find it helpful to let them know that they are energy attacking you, especially if that is not beliefs that you share. But if you share with them that they are making you feel uncomfortable, if you share with them that they are making you feel drained or down, or that you feel the relationship is imbalanced, or that they are hurting you and your feelings, and they continue to disrespect that or engage in the same type of behavior, then it is up to you to decide whether that relationship is still one that you would like to participate in and allow in your life. So I know we've talked about the spiritual inputs and how you can work on your triggers and take responsibility for you and all of those things. But remember, you also do have a physical input in terms of whether or not you allow these people to continue to get close to you. And I know it can be hurtful, especially if these are people that you love or have loved, if they are loved ones or family members or people that you've been through rough times before. Try to remember that removing or disengaging from an energy cord, especially one that's toxic, doesn't necessarily mean the ending of a relationship. And also remember that you do have the right to end relationships that you have outgrown, or with people that show you that they are not ready to grow to a version of themselves that respects you and ends the behavior that has been hurting you. Now, protection and cleansing are still valuable tools, but again, they're going to be tied up in your belief system. So eventually, when you take better stock of your triggers and inputs, you will have to cleanse less and even have to protect less, because your frequency will protect you more and more naturally without so much work on it. Now, in terms of cleansing, the balance between your self-work and cleansing and removing or cord removing is going to be different every time, depending on the level or type of attack that you are experiencing. Sometimes this can be a simple ritual, sometimes it can be a full soul contract adjustment or removal, and sometimes it can include energetic boundaries, rituals, or removals, as well as physical and verbal boundaries or removals, and or life and relationship changes, etc. Those are all going to be really unique to you and the types and levels and peoples of attack that you may be experiencing. So I encourage you to dive further on that in more of your own life and consciousness writing and stream of consciousness writing, which if you didn't do it yet at this point in the session, no worries. You can always go back and listen again. I know this was quite an intense and energy-packed download, so please do bookmark it, like it, and come back to it whenever you feel the need and when you feel like you have more energy to do so. And as I said, if and when you find that you need help with these things or with other aspects of energy healing, such as Akashic Records healing and life and ancestral patterns healing, inner child healing, and more, chakra balancing, expansion of your gifts, etc., you will find the form to work with me in a custom-built soul container with quantum, Sikhem, and shamanic energy healing techniques and life and consciousness coaching. That form is always available on my website, DAMCL Designs, that's damseldesigns.com, and linked directly through the description, depending on where you are viewing or listening to this on. You will find that it is a form and application so that we can get in touch first, see where you're at, see what you need, and build you a custom package. I no longer do energy healing in single sessions, especially things like psychic attack, soul retrieval, etc., because I want to work with you to also integrate the new techniques and your new energy and get you on stable footing and get you in your power fully. Nothing that we do is a quick one and done in my experience, especially when it comes to these type of energy intense things, unless we also have support to work on that integration so that we fully understand and accept the new and more positive energy. You can also start with a quantum or Akashic Records reading session with me, and then we can dive into building you a custom energy healing package. Or if you don't feel like you need a healing at this time, but would really like to gain some stellar insights on your energy, on your field, on your Akashic Records or ancestral or relationship patterns, and or connect with your guide teams and spirit, you can also book a quantum or Akashic Records reading session with me on my website, where you will find other session types available as well. On my website, you'll also find things like digital downloads, enlightened merch, and more, and I would love to see you as a visitor on there as well. But beautiful soul, with all that being said and all we've gone over today, I am going to leave you here and close the session. I really hope, pray, and trust that this perspective and this information has blessed you today, has helped you feel better and more empowered, because ultimately, although we didn't do an energetic removal, we worked on those beliefs that said that it has to be so hard. We worked on those beliefs that continually tried to make you focus outward rather than inward first. And remember, anytime you're focusing outward, you are giving more power away rather than calling more power and energy back to you. And if you are being attacked and or drained, you want to call that power and embody that power back into you, not continuously allow or give it away to those negative people or unwanted circumstances. I know we didn't touch on unwanted circumstances too much, but all these same premises and practices will apply. Just imagine them as something that is also trying to reach your inputs, and how you can work on changing that trigger or input and reacting differently so that the unwanted circumstances will start to mirror and shift differently in your reality. And that is also something that we can work on in life and consciousness coaching if you like. So if you have liked this session, by the way, please be sure to like it to help spread it through the algorithms. Feel free to leave a review or share it to get it out there to help more people. I know that these ideas are newer in perspective than the traditional cleanse and shield techniques, but I have found them to be longer lasting and more helpful in the long run. So I really would like to see more of you utilizing this and or working with me in this capacity. If you try out these techniques, come back and leave a review or comment and let me know how it went for you. And as I said, you will find more information from last week's session, which should also be relevant to you, or you can follow any of the former chat and channel sessions. They are pretty much all timeless topics on different aspects of mindfulness and spirituality to help you in your expansion and or ascension journey. And you will find the full playlist with the backlog of chat and channel sessions before I started uploading across all streaming platforms on my YouTube channel, These Enlightened Edits. And please be a subscriber or a follower in as many places as you can. You will catch me on the daily on my Instagram at These Enlightened Edits, on my YouTube weekly, and on Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, Google, and Spotify. So check me out everywhere you can to get the most spiritual support and information. For those of you who would like even more information and to help support chat and channel session, Spotify has a low-cost monthly subscriber option, which you will get additional information from. If you would like to sponsor chat and channel session, you can reach out to me through the website links. Or if you would like to leave an all amounts appreciated donation, you can always do so through paypal.me/DS Enlightened Edits. None of those are requirements, but they are appreciated to help support me, my family, and my work as I get more of this free information out there to you, which is the result of years of study and experience. I am so grateful that you are here. I hope you are and will continue to be a subscriber, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Be blessed with love, light, and light codes. Love, Danielle, #damsel at These Enlightened Edits of damseldesigns.com. Remember that you are more powerful than you think you are, and you have the power over any situation you are in, along with whatever higher power you believe in most. Know that if you found your way here today, you are being supported in ways that you may not even be able to imagine right now. And armed with your new tools, perspective, higher power, and any additional help that you feel called to bring in right now, I am confident that you will be able to stop this or any other psychic attack that you may experience in your life. And I am so grateful for your life and your journey. Know that it means a lot to higher power and to those that you will inspire in your life. Thanks for being here. See you next time.